You've seen the video, George Floyd. I didn't feel it was necessary to play it again, because it's very gut wrenching. Um, Me personally, and for those of you who don't know, man, George Floyd was killed in police custody. You've seen the video. The officer had his knee on his back. He was face forward to concrete, clearly restrained, pleading for his life. Pleading for his, trying to breathe. His pleas fell on deaf ears. Deaf ears. And for myself, man, I have to say that this one, as they say, hit different. Watching it, and you can tell how it's resonated with so many people. The video itself was just, I don't have the words really to put it to describe how it made me feel. So when I see what's going on out there, it only strengthens the fact that it had that same effect on so many people. You have protests going on in, California, New York, right here in Canton, Cleveland, Columbus, Texas. They're over in South Africa, London, everywhere. You've had protests going on. You know, for the most part, peaceful protests. We've seen, looting and such things. Even though it's to be debated who's actually starting all of that, which I don't want to get into, but you've seen the people who are fed up. We could literally do this every week. Last week we talked about the one young lady that was murdered and went in the house. What was her name again?
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor. The week before that it was
Ahmaud Arbery.
We could might as well just do a podcast strictly for, police murders. It's like every week. So, and it's just, it can leave you numb. People are angry. People are hurt. People are scared. It's this debate on, all the riots or the uprisings, whatever you call them. Is it right? Are they doing this? My son, he asked me, what do I think about it? Do I think they're right or they're wrong? And I don't look at it in the sense of right or wrong. I look at it in the sense of cause and effect. You have a cause, you have effect. We say all the time, if somebody spit in your face, you say if I'm a man and a woman spits in my face, and I know I'm not supposed to hit a woman. At the same time, you don't know how a person is going to react. You know what I mean? So it's basically cause and effect. Like, to call these people thugs. Like they last week they weren't out here looting Target. Last week they wasn't out here. They was minding their business, trying to live their life. And then something like this is caught on videotape and goes viral, and all of a sudden, you have the top blown off on years and years and years of frustration, going back to the Watts riots and the Chicago riots and the riots in Cleveland, Huff area. And it's the same thing over and over again. So I'm just going to go ahead and lead to that and get you guys' idea, get your guys' thought process. Shay, you with us?
Yes, sir.
We'll start with you, man, and give me your thoughts on just what's going on overall.
Well, I think we must talk about the cause, and the cause for this is our brother George. And what happened to that man, George Floyd, was insane. He repeatedly told the officer that he couldn't breathe. He told the officer that he was the officer knew that he was on his neck, but he told the officer man, you're killing me. And the officer didn't let up. And it just speaks towards the police force whenever there's 3 other officers or 4 other officers there, and they don't do something about it. We basically witnessed the lynching. Furthermore, we look at it whenever the paramedics came, they checked his pulse and did not perform CPR. They just dragged him in. So that makes me think like, wow, like you guys didn't even do your job. So then we look at the issue and it's like, it has to be systemic because we're not talking about like the deep South no more. We're not talking about a place like Texas or a place like Alabama. We're talking about it, Minneapolis. That's in Minnesota. So it just shows like there's a systemic issue within our system. And then whenever we widen that and we think like, what would cause a group of people who a week ago, like you said, were not rioting, what would cause them to do something like this? And it's the systemic racism, the systemic disenfranchisement, the systemic mistreatment that we've faced since we came to this country. And I think the accumulation of that and the hypocrisy of our justice system that freely lends our fellow white brothers or white people who lends white people the freedoms and the things that they deserve because it's their human right. It doesn't lend African Americans that same thing, and that boils over, and that's what we're seeing right now. And like you said, I really like what you said when you said you don't really see it as a right and wrong. You see it as like cause and effect. This is the effect whenever you obstruct justice. You know, this is the effect. Langston Hughes spoke very, very well about it. He said he has a poem called Harlem, or What Happens to a Dream Deferred. And in that poem, he speaks like about what happens to it. And he basically says like, does it sag like a heavy load? Does it retreat or does it explode? And I think the logical answer to that, whenever we look at like history, is that it explodes. No group of people has been as patient as we've been. I don't know in history if any group of people has been as patient as we've been. 400 years, and they tell us wait, and they say, well, that's just some people. No, like this is going on for too long, and this is what you get whenever it happens. As far as the morality of people robbing and stealing, that's not something I subscribe to. But what do you expect from a group of people? What do you expect from a group of people who have been marginalized, mistreated, who are already poor, who are already suffering from a pandemic, and then you throw on something like this? Not to mention our president, who freely calls us thugs, and clearly has hidden agendas and has shown favoritism towards people who are of the likeness of him, as opposed to the likeness of brothers and sisters like ourselves. So just seeing that, it's just frustrating, and I can understand why they would do it. And like you said, it's kind of like a cause and effect.
We're going to read these comments, Rich, and then we're going to release them and hear what you got to say.
Oh, yeah. Jerome Jackson said they tore the city of Cleveland streets up.
We miss you too, bro.
I think it was a warning. No one brought guns and shot back. Next time. Jerome went on to say protests only go that far when police don't prove fair with the protesters. What's going on, West France? Once again, Jerome Jackson, Lex Greene, how you doing? Patrick Bubba Boy Cole, I see you. We got Jerome Jackson went on to say, I say the Malcolm way will work in this instance. In this instance, it's not extreme. We always dodge the Malcolm way. But now, and then he went on to say, I am not one to encourage violence, usually, however.
Lisa.
So, this whole situation, it's like, you know, this is what they do, you know, and the fact that this man died the way that he did is a horrible, horrible thing. I can't even put into words how crazy it is. And I mean, I expect nothing less of, you know, America's finest, the police officers. You know what I'm saying? So, what the fuck? No, I'm not one to riot, and I'm not one to protest. I don't agree with the riots, but however, I do understand them. And I don't think I can't say they're wrong in this situation. They left us no choice but to do what we do. You complain and you talk when we kneel. And now we out here